From Hong Kong, Chicago, and the city of Stoke-on-Trent, this is the Classic Lenses Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 119. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Johnny Sisson and Perry G. Hello, Johnny.
Hello.
And hello, Perry.
Hello.
Good to see you. Well, I was going to say good to see you both, but I can see Perry. I can't see Johnny because we're not doing stuff over video this week. After I managed not to put that show out from a couple of weeks ago because video is just bad news, isn't it? Let's face it. Let's just stick to words. I think it's the way forward. So on that note, I'm going to head straight over to Hong Kong. Perry.
Ooh, we're starting over here. All right. The number one, a little bit of a weather report. We have a typhoon coming, and I just got home a little while ago, right when the winds and rain started blowing. So outside my window, I can see the trees doing the whole tropical cyclone swing. That aside, yeah, my Google Meets or whatever we're using defaults to have the camera on, and I thought I would just keep it on because I have a bunch of stuff to show you guys. Because in Hong Kong, despite all the kind of crackdown we have from China over the last few months, our sort of daily lives are de-coroned, so to speak, for the most part. I mean, everyone's wearing masks, but we really haven't been worried about coronavirus here for a month or two, around 2 months now. And during that time, it turns out that I had about a quarter of a year's worth of pent-up gas just building up. And quite recently, the market seems to have bottomed out here. And just like crazy deals have been appearing on lenses. So I've been hoovering stuff up. And I didn't realize until sort of before taking inventory before this show just how many lenses I've purchased over the last few months and played around with. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of things. But before that, I have been shooting quite a bit. We finally had a bit of good weather here after about a month of nonstop rain. And I have been shooting mostly with a recently acquired Zeiss ZM Biogon 21 2.8, which I got to say is one of the most enjoyable ultra-wide angle lenses I have ever used. It's I got it with a 21-25 Voigtlander finder. It's just beautiful. I mean, the tones and the sharpness and everything on that lens, it's fantastic. So I went, yeah.
I was just going to say, you've been killing it with those shots you've been posting the last few days.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I've really, really been enjoying it. I went out shooting with Mike Epstein the other day, and I brought 4 lenses with me: a 28, a 21, a 40, and a 90. And I took one shot with the 28 millimeter, which I've been really enjoying lately. And then I switched to the 21 and never took it off. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a hell of a lot of fun. And I think recently my focal lengths have been getting wider and wider and wider. And there were times when I was shooting 21 where I actually thought, oh, I wish this lens were even a little bit wider than 21. At no point did I wish that it were longer. So that was truly excellent. And that lens is like, it's just on the cusp of the being too big for a rangefinder. I think anything larger than that, or like the 50 Summilux spherical, it's off-putting to me. But that size or below, it's totally fine. And one thing that's really fun about that lens is it's just large enough, and the text is bright enough that when I'm using the external viewfinder, you can see at the bottom of the frame, just outside the frame lines, the aperture, like really, really clearly. So it's super convenient. Yeah, I
mean, 21 mils great is a fantastic focal length, and we talked about it when I mentioned about my trip up to Scotland. I think it must have been it was in November, and I took a Contax G2 kit with me on loan from Jeremy North, and the lens that the 2 lenses that got used the most were the 28 and the 21. And I could have just left the 21 on there. And that's a Biogon as well. I think the actual design. I think you were telling us before, the design between the two lenses isn't actually the same, is it? Is that right?
No, they're similar, but they're not the same.
Yeah, but I mean, certainly the results from that Contax G Biogon were just stunning. I loved it, but using a rangefinder with an external viewfinder and being a wide angle lens, and so really your critical focus is not really that much of an issue. In fact, you're probably trying to get most of the things in focus anyway, so you're stopping down. Well, in my case, I was largely shooting at f8 or maybe a little bit smaller, because I wasn't trying to do any kind of selective focus, so it didn't matter about the fact that I was looking through an external viewfinder and with getting an approximation of the scene I was taking rather than the exact scene, which is normally for me is which is what I would want to have, and why I'm a big fan of SLRs rather than rangefinders. But when you go wider, it just doesn't seem to matter anywhere near as much.
Right, and the external finder, the window is so clear that in many ways it's almost like composing, looking more directly at reality in some way.
Yeah.
So I've been shooting that on a couple of cameras, my M4 and also this thing, which I picked up to sort of replace my Konica Hexar RF while it's in the shop for repairs. So a good deal popped up on this Minolta CLE. And I know people like Animal Mystery are a huge fan of this camera, and I have wanted one for a while. But, it's just lovely. I just don't have anything else that's aperture priority. And I think it's, one of the best ways to shoot 28 millimeters that I've found so far. So aside from the 21 millimeter, let's stay on the wide angle because Mr. Sisson over there in one of our long threads on the Facebook group, a couple of weeks ago, he gassed me into picking up a lens. Someone was asking a question about wide angles. I can't remember. And Johnny mentioned this lens, and one just happened to pop up on our local market for apparently much, much lower than they go for overseas.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a very small lens. It is a Rusar MP2. 20 millimeter f5.6 in like pristine condition, that I got for about half of its market price. This is the original version, not the lomography version. It was made this one was made in 1994, because Soviet lenses and their serial numbers are actually logical, unlike for anyone who doesn't know, right? Simon, do you want to explain what those serial numbers indicate?
Well, I need to do a first correction first. 1994 was after the Soviet Union ended, of course.
Right. Okay, fair.
So
fair.
I think in that case it was. I'm not sure what factory that one came out of. So I think we could probably call that a Russian lens.
I think this is KMZ, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so Kranjska Gors. So that's a Russian lens. But yeah, the first two serial numbers of the. Certainly not all, but the vast majority of Soviet era lenses, and after the end of the Soviet Union era, the first two numbers related to the second two numbers of the year. So 62 will be a 1962, for instance. There's a bit of an anomaly over what happened in 1970, where I've never actually had this answered entirely correctly, but I think those 1970s are the 00 lenses that are out there,
right.
There is an element of doubt over that one, and I think it's because, like, certainly with KMZ back in the day, they were actually later to adopt the serial the serial number system by date than the other factories in the Soviet Union at the time. So there's a little bit of crossover. So you can't always get it, but generally speaking, that's what it means.
Right. So Simon, you've played with the new lomography version of this, and Johnny, you've been gassing over this for a while, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
So I bought it just because you kind of forced me to. You were like, it's such a good price. Here's a bunch of memes telling you to get it. So I went for it. But why is this lens so sort of appealing?
Well, to me, it's just the focal length, and the optical design is really unique. There just doesn't seem to be. It's just kind of. It seems like it's basically a one-off, right? I mean, there's not a lot of similar lenses to it. So
the diagram is interesting. It looks like almost a Russian take on a Topcon Biogon hybrid.
Yeah.
Because it's quite symmetrical, but it's definitely not a Topcon. It's not a straight up copy of that. And the rear element, as you can see here, it sticks out really, really far back. And it's so light. This thing weighs like 60 or 70 grams. It's
wow.
Feather light. So when I put it on my Leica 3F, it's almost pocketable.
Yeah, it's great.
But Simon, you weren't too enthralled with it when you tried it?
No, although to be fair, it was I think it was about 3 years ago, and I was heavily into my bokeh phase of my photography back then. And let's face it, you're not going to get any bokeh out of that lens unless you put it on some kind of extension, and then it would have to be about only a 3mm extension, or else it would be too much with it being such a wide angle lens. That was when I also tried the Jupiter 3 Plus, which was the modern take on the Jupiter 3. And I actually bought my Lomography new Petzval 58 at the same time. But having tried the Jupiter 3 Plus, which I liked, but it was, unsurprisingly, very similar to the Jupiter 3s that I'd already used and tried. And I think I was expecting a bit more out of it for some reason. And then about 15 minutes later, I walked down to the Zeiss stand, and they let me try a ZM Sonar 1.5, and that did exactly what I was hoping it was going to do. It was stunning. I loved that lens, and I still do. And I've actually forgotten how much I actually like that lens. So who knows? One day. But no, the Russar didn't just. I wasn't really that much into the wide angle lenses at the time, really. So I didn't appreciate it at the time.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, I can see why Lomography remade this lens, because they're into kind of the weird looking stuff. And I got to say, this lens, the center sharpness is very strong, as you would expect for a slower wide angle. But the edges really fall off like crazy, not in terms of necessarily vignetting, but just, that Lomo look where it's almost pinhole-like. It absolutely has that look on the edges, but the tones are really beautiful in black and white. And then in color, if you shoot it against the sun or against a light source, it has this really lovely looking flare that I haven't seen in many other lenses.
So are you talking on film here or on digital?
Flare on digital, black and white tones on film.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the edge sharpness though.
On film.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Because, you just think that with it being the rear element being sunk back, that's obviously going to cause issues around the edges of a digital sensor that shouldn't really happen with film, but it sounds like it's doing it with film anyway. Oh,
it absolutely is. I'll show you some samples. It's really obvious. Although, to be fair, most of the time I was shooting with this lens, I was shooting it wide open because it was on like a cloudy day. Wide open is f5.6. So who knows if you stop it down a little if that improves. I'm not sure. I haven't actually tried it much more. But then the other thing, sorry.
I was just going to say a reference point. Dan Goshen has that lens and has done some really nice stuff with it. And his shots, I think, are, the stuff I've seen is mostly stop down, and it looks really, really nice. But I mean, that was one of the things that interests me about that lens was the fall off. I really like fall off on wide angle lenses because I don't really use them for landscape photography. So I actually really like, that's actually the thing I like about was it the Jupiter 12, right? Is that the 35?
Jupiter 12 on digital, it's just made for you, isn't it, Johnny?
Yeah, but even on film, I mean, that's the thing. I hate the lens construction, but I really like the look of that lens. And to me, the Russar seemed like a similar, in a certain sense, it seemed like a similar rendering to that, just wider. So that was my interest in it. But I mean, I don't know, the pictures that Dan Goshen has posted, stop down bright sunlight look really, really, really good. So I think the performance is in there if you want to shoot it that way,
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely give it a go on a bright day. I mean, the way I was shooting it was I had it at f5.6, hyperfocal at around 2 to 3 meters.
Cool.
And then everything was in focus. Oh, I mean, this thing has a ridiculously long focus throw. Like, there's about 90 degrees between 0.5 meters, which is the minimum focus, and 1 meter. And then another 90 degrees between 1 meter and like 2 meters. And I don't know why you need that long a focus throw for a lens that you're scale focusing at 20 millimeters at 5.6, right? You could literally just give it like this long a focus throw of 10 degrees from minimum to max, and it would essentially have the same effect. It's just cool. Because then one of the things I was doing when I was shooting this is I know there were times, because I was using an external viewfinder, I know there were times when I was just turning the focus ring for no reason and it didn't matter. Whereas I did that recently with a Biogun, and I have one shot that would have been really, really nice, but it was at minimum focus distance because I was just messing around with the focus ring, but looking through an external finder, and that's stupid. Don't do that.
Yeah, I do that every once in a while when I shoot the Voigtlander 21 millimeter, which is my go-to. But I get so used to it being essentially a focus-free lens, I forget to focus it. And if for some reason it's not set to hyperfocal, my first 3 or 4 shots are out of focus, only because it's like turned entirely one way or the other. But I mean, it's essentially a focus-free lens. So I forget to set the focus the first time I pull it out of the bag sometimes.
Yeah. No, I that's exactly what's happened to me. It's, I mean, it's one of the drawbacks of the external viewfinder, right? You're using a rangefinder and you think that, oh, I'm just moving the focus tab and I'll know when it's in focus. But But then, you know, your brain just goes, I should be moving this while I'm taking a picture.
Right.
Without any reference to what it's actually doing. Simon's probably sitting there going, rangefinders are stupid, guys.
Well, yeah, they are, aren't they?
So speaking of fall off, here's another lens that I have acquired, which is tiny. It's so freaking small. I did put this like against my glasses so you get a sense of scale. This is an Avenon 28 millimeter f3.5 LTM. Which in the US, I think was sold under the Kobalux brand and a couple of other like random brand names. I know Roland Banderab also has this lens. Mike Epstein also has this lens.
Doesn't Robbie have it too? I think, right?
Oh, he does. Yeah, that's right. So there's a few different flavors of it, mostly in terms of the shape of this focus tab. Some of them they're like a little stick, which we'll talk about in a bit. Some are this. Some have wings. You know, I don't know why.
Well, Red Bull.
So I don't know if either of you have tried this lens, but I know Mike Epstein pretty much hates it with a burning passion, and I have extremely mixed feelings about it.
That seems to be the consensus on that lens. Everyone I've talked to has mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, I mean, on paper it's wonderful because it's tiny, it's light, it's got a nice focus ring. But I think this lens is kind of crap because as far as fall off goes, you know, it works kind of well on a Sony because the rear element doesn't stick out that much. But the fall off, it's kind of it's a Topcon design derivative, but the fall off is so bad, wide open at least. It never gets better. Even at f8, it's got absurd vignetting, but it's so bad that it looks like the lens was designed for a smaller format. You know, it looks like it was designed for half frame or something, and it just happens to cover full frame. So some people are into that look, but I think, you know, to me, there's a difference between pleasant vignetting and what this lens looks like, where kind of the middle is, you know, sharp and poppy, and it's got a nice coating, and then it's just dark, you know, super dark towards the edges. So I really want to like this lens, and this one's in like pristine condition, but I don't think I like it, guys. Yeah.
It's not a lens that up until you shared a picture of it the other day, I had no knowledge of whatsoever. I was actually quite surprised that anybody would make of these like no-name brands for LTM. That was as much of a shock as anything.
Yeah, they make two. There's the 28 3.5 and there's the 21 millimeter f2.8, which is much larger. And I think the neatest things about these lenses is they come with these enormous external viewfinders that are pretty much bigger than the lens itself. So get it for the viewfinder, but I don't know if I would recommend.
So are they modern? I mean, it looks modern. I mean, is it effectively a new lens or is it from another era?
I don't know when they were made. It looks and feels like it was made maybe in the 90s or something, or no later than the late 80s. So it does look relatively new-ish. Yeah. And again, I know that you can find them under different brands. They say that it's sold as Kobalux in the US, but I've only ever seen Avenon branded ones. And then the 21 is this ugly silver color, so don't get that. Johnny, has Robbie told you his feelings about that lens? Equally ambivalent.
He I don't think he's used it a ton. I know he mentioned he was thinking about maybe getting a different wide, like a different 28. But I think he ended up not doing that. I don't know. He hasn't. I don't think he shoots it super frequently.
Yeah, it's understandable. It's really not a lens for shooting.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. They could have, if they did this well, it would have been wonderful. But so let's move on to a better lens. So no more rangefinder lenses for the moment, so Simon doesn't shoot himself. One of the things that happened when Mike and I were walking around the other day was we stumbled upon this tiny little random shop in an industrial area. It's sort of an area of Hong Kong called Tai Kok Choi, which basically is car repair shops everywhere. It's auto repair. And there was this tiny little shop that sold film and film cameras. And it looked like the owner had just been there for decades and just couldn't be bothered to retire. So we went in, they had a bunch of stuff, and he had a broken Konica, I guess it is a rangefinder, but we'll talk about the lens. He had a broken Konica Auto S 1.6, which he was selling for basically like $10. The lens was pristine, and everything about this camera is actually in pretty good condition and works pretty well, except for the shutter. The shutter was completely jammed and would not cock. So I decided, well, screw it. This looks like it's a 45 millimeter f1.6 hexanon. So I decided I was going to take it home and first try to fix the camera. And if I couldn't do that, then I would rip the lens off and go to Little Garden and adapt it onto my Sony. So that's what I ended up doing, because the shutter, I took the lens off, and it's really easy to remove the lens, but then there's a few little cables that attach it to the metering system. And before I cut the cables, I tried to sort of open it up, and nothing about the shutter mechanism worked. There's a little spindle that cocks the shutter when you wind the advance lever. And that spindle just was basically broken off of the inside of the lens, and it wouldn't engage the winding mechanism. So then when I opened it up, I decided, okay, I'm going to remove the shutter blades and use it as a mirrorless lens. And as soon as I opened it up, the shutter blades, they wouldn't move. And then they just suddenly flew out, and they flew everywhere. And I was like, oh, I thought that was going to be a really, delicate and annoying job to remove the shutter blades, but that was easy. And it turned out that, all the shutter blades were in place, and then there were two more pieces of shutter blade, like extra pieces that were broken off. I don't know if you guys have ever played with shutter blades, but, in a leaf shutter, it's kind of got the main bit in the middle of the lens, and then there's the little extra tiny bit with the hole that then goes onto the part where it moves, right? And each blade is kind of resting in a separate hole around the glass. So there were like two extra little pieces with that hole just sitting in between the shutter blades. So I don't know if someone had been in there and just did something stupid, but it was bizarre.
That sounds like that's the actual shutter. Like the blades are, like a leaf shutter lens. It's got the shutter itself, and then it has the aperture.
Right? Yeah. But hold on, give me one second. I can actually show you this because it's bizarre. I have them in a film container. Okay, so like I said, the shutter was totally jammed, right? And when I opened it up, a normal shutter blade looks like this, right?
Yeah.
So all of these shutter blades were in place, and there were like 5 of them, and they were not moving. They were totally jammed in place. And then after they flew out, 2 extra pieces flew out with them. And those 2 extra pieces look like this, which is basically like the end of the shutter blade.
Oh.
Right? Like this end of the shutter blade broken off.
Oh, yeah. So
But
maybe...
yeah.
Maybe the rest of the blades had already disappeared somewhere. You know what I mean?
But all of the blades were intact. It looked like everything was there, and then there were 2 extra of this. So I have no idea what was going on there.
Perry, I think we've established that the camera was broken, and that's why you took the lens off it. You didn't break the camera. The camera was already broken. And it's absolutely fine for you to adapt it to something else and go and put a light bulb in the camera. Everything's fine.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, good. Simon, you totally saw through my intention there because I feel guilty, right? Because the rangefinder patch is clear. The focus moves. Everything is... The meter moves. Everything's kind of
You're
working.
protesting too much, Perry. Stop it.
Okay. I feel bad, because it's like it could have been a good camera. Although I don't know. Johnny, you have one of these, right? Is it actually good as a user?
Is that an S2? You said
it's an S1.6, but it's basically the same camera with a faster lens.
It's the one I have is even less inspiring than that one. So
the broken one.
Yeah. So no, I'm sorry. That's not the one I have. That's the Konica. I have the no, I guess it is a Konica, isn't it? I have the S2, which is a similar camera with like a 1.8 or a 1.1. Yeah, 1.8 lens, and it's a great camera. It's just thoroughly uninspiring. It's to me it's it's kind of it's far less inspiring than the Canon fixed lens rangefinders, but it's the same. I have the same problem with all of them. They're just really boring.
Right. I was going to say that it's almost like an unnecessarily large Canonet.
Yeah, right. It's exactly. I mean, it's like the larger versions of the Canonets, not the small ones. It's hefty like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And the focus mechanism is really smooth on this one, the helicoid.
Yeah.
So it's a shame, although it does feel like you could just pull it off because it's so loose.
Yeah.
But I think this is a camera that, if it were the same price and working, I would enjoy having it, but it's not one that I would ever go and proactively shoot just because it's unnecessarily large. So let's talk about the lens.
Yeah,
I was going to say, the eulogy's over now. Come on.
Okay. Camera's dead. This lens is sweet. The f1.6 version is quite, it's relatively less common than the S2. But, I mean... It's really nice, guys. It's fast lens for like $10. I'm quite happy with this.
Yeah. That's cool.
So I got it onto a helicoid, and it's basically attached with blue tack to a 52 millimeter to 58 millimeter conversion ring, which I then have screwed into a 58 to M42 helicoid on my Sony.
Nice. And
it's very sharp, wide open, surprisingly, and it's got nice bokeh color, really nice colors, really, really, really nice colors. And then because it's the entire front of the lens is like an aperture control, so it handles pretty well.
Oh, cool.
Well, that's like a Helios 103. The main ring on the Helios 103 controls the aperture. Because it doesn't even have a helicoid in the lens itself. It's because it's from a Kiev camera. So first time people pick one of those things up, they try to focus it with the aperture ring effectively, which is sort of what you were doing there.
Yeah, exactly. Although it's harder to make that mistake with this because you're kind of turning the entire lens rather than the ring on the front, which feels like a focus ring.
Yeah.
On the Helios 103. Mike Novak was telling me that this is the first camera that he took apart. So it seems like theoretically, if you got the shutter working, you could reattach it to the camera and use it.
I'm just wondering if that was the exact camera that Mike actually worked on, and that's why the shutter doesn't work anymore.
No, he still got his. His was an S2.
Sorry, Mike.
Where I think he succeeded. I think he actually succeeded in fixing it because it is one of the easiest disassembly jobs. So I think as far as like harvesting a camera for its lens goes, this is definitely the most straightforward one that I've done. Right, the only tricky part was finding a way to get it onto a helicoid, because it's like, there's no natural way to thread it. Like there's the retaining ring is behind the rear element of the lens. So someone in the group told me that you can put a 25 millimeter to M42 thread back there, but then you have to remove the pin that triggers the shutter because it gets in the way. There we go. Okay, I still have more, but not too many more. The next thing I want to talk about is not so much this lens, but this is the part we've been waiting for. We're going to talk about the knob, the stick. So this is a Voigtlander 28 millimeter f3.5 color scope R LTM version. And when I was out with Mike, he's been posting some pictures with a few of his newer Voigtlander lenses, the 35 f2 Ultron and the new 21 3.5 scope R. And those lenses plus the LTM classic versions of the 21 color scope R and the 35 color scope R all have this delightful little metal stick, or this delightful little knob on the bottom as your focusing tab. So when I first saw this, I was super skeptical, especially because they put it on their newer lenses, the 21 and 35, the Ultron and the scope R. But then, when I picked up this lens and I actually felt it, like the knob is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my snapshot scope R has the same tab as well. It's the same body design. So they've used that same body design for 4 focal length lenses. Mm-hmm. So it's, it's kind of like, to me, which I think is brilliant from a design standpoint. You essentially have the same lens body design for multiple lenses in your catalog, which seems really logical and intuitive and a smart way to do things. It's one of the things I like the most about all of those lenses. I don't have all of them. I don't have the 35, but I have the 21 and the 25, the snapshots scope R. And I like that tab design better than that funky tab on the modern Leica lenses, and even some of the Voigtlanders that copy the Leica lenses, where it's that U-shaped finger. It's so simple, and it's just like simple, effective design, and it's really all you need for. I would gladly have that little focus tab on any rangefinder lens that I have versus any of the other kind of styles that are out there. It's just really simple and effective.
It's wonderful. And the best thing about the knob is, Simon, the best thing about the knob is, like, no matter where you put your finger or no matter what angle you kind of touch it, it's perfect, right? Right. Whereas if it's an infinity lock tab, you have to press down on the front. Sure. And then once you get past, 2 meters, you have to change the angle of your finger to get into close distance range. Right. The U shape, sometimes your finger is inside the U, sometimes it's on the outside.
It's totally annoying, yeah.
Well, I quite like it, but it requires 2 different motions depending on where in the focus throw you are. Yeah. But I agree with you. I think it might be the most comfortable focus tab that I've used, because you can press the knob, you can, stroke the side of the knob, you can slide the knob back and forth.
Knob stroker.
Oh, it's so nice, man. Can you remove the knob? It looks like you can screw it out.
Yeah, you know what? I've tried it, and mine don't budge.
Okay.
So
I've never tried to remove my knob either.
Yeah, I don't know if the knob is removable. So interestingly, I'm just going to point this out for Simon's benefit at this point. Interestingly, the knob on my snapshot scope R is flat on the end and has no knurling on it. But the knob on my 21 has it's a knurled metal knob, so it's got lines on it like a focus ring, and it's kind of rounded at the bottom of the tab. So I think like the snapshot scope R version of the tab, it's just kind of maybe the budget or the more modern sleek style tab.
So is it like this? As I'm sort of
so the one on the 21 is just like that. Well, hold on, I can turn the camera on. Yeah, especially since nobody will be able to see it because we're not doing video. So I've spent a lot of time showing this on the camera.
There you go.
So I don't know if you can see this.
That's the bottom of the camera.
Wait, my little window is my little video window.
Oh, just click on yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I did. So here we go. So there's the tab on the 25.
Oh yeah, okay.
See how it's flatter and it's right, and it's smooth right there.
Yeah, and it's more kind of bulbous at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Versus the 21, which is knurled and rounded at the end.
Yeah, that looks pretty much the same as the one on the 28.
I think right, and I think it's the same on the 35 also. So it's like that. They actually, I guess, I don't know if they refined it or improved it for the 25. I think they probably the 25 to me is just a pure kind of budget lens, the snapshot scope R. So I would think maybe they, the more simplified version of it or something. But anyway, I like them both.
Yeah, the knob is wonderful.
Oh, so speaking of the 25, that's where.
Hey, it's on that's a Zorky 4K.
Yeah, that's where it lives. Oh,
dude, you know how that Voigtlander plastic finder you've got on there kind of looks like, it was ripped off some kind of amphibian?
Yeah.
Both Mike and I, he's been buying lenses like crazy too. But we both got the 2125 Voigtlander finder recently.
That finder is fucking awesome, and I want one, and I've been trying to find one for like 5 fucking years, and I don't have it.
So good.
I know, man. So here's the dedicated 35 finder, right?
Yeah.
It looks just like that.
Yep.
Right? Except it's got the 2 sets of frame lines, and they're just a little bit offset from each other, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's perfectly usable with glasses.
Yeah.
So I got mine brand new from a Voigtlander dealer. It was the last one they had. They were like, it's discontinued at the back of their shelf. And then Mike tried it, and he has the Zeiss finder, but he was kind of enamored by this one. And then lo and behold, a day after he tried it and was like gassing over this finder, some dude locally listed a 21 scope R with that finder for less than what the price of just that lens goes normally.
That's crazy.
So Mike just basically bought that and flipped the lens and got the finder for free. It's got a little bit of brassing. It's such a nice finder.
Yeah, it's worth it. I actually like on the Zorky, I like the plastic finder. I feel like on the Zorky, this is like one of the best looking camera lens combos of any camera I own. It's
dorky on the Zorky.
It totally works. It looks super like sci-fi almost. Whereas opposed to this, I mean, that Voigtlander metal finder works on any classic camera. It looks like, the Canon, there's a Canon finder. I have the Canon 35 finder. That's almost the identical design to this.
But the Voigtlanders, I have both as well. The Voigtlander's way better in terms of...
way better. It's got frame lines. I mean, the Canon doesn't have frame. So, it's just like one of those things. It's just like a perfectly designed piece of equipment. It's simple and perfect. And I feel like they did the same thing with this lens design. Like it's actually, I find this lens design to be kind of ugly. But it's just so perfectly form following function. You know what I mean? It's just, it's simple and it's kind of perfectly effective.
Exactly. So, while we're sitting here stroking our knobs, Simon
we're knob stroking.
Simon has just appeared in black and white with beautiful bokeh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I just thought I'd just do something useful.
I got to go get a Kleenex and clean my screen off. After
Simon,
all that.
you're muted. I saw your mouth moving.
Oh,
but no sound came out.
Yeah, well, I just thought I'd do something constructive while you two just go on and on about rangefinder tabs and dear. Are we done with that yet, or is there more?
So, final point. The reason why I got that 21mm Voigtlander finder is I used to have the Lights one. Well, I still have it, but the Lights plastic finder, it sticks out about a centimeter behind the back of the camera, which is really annoying when you're sliding it into a bag. But then the Voigtlander is like perfectly flush with the back of the camera, so that makes it far more desirable.
Yeah.
Sorry, Simon. Simon, what lens are you using to film yourself? It looks really good.
It's obvious what I'm using if I look good.
Heliar?
Exactly. Yeah, it's my webcam, my Asahi Kagok. I can never say it again.
Oh my god!
I managed to say the first bit right. That I usually fall over, and I stumble on the second one. Kogaku. Is that sounds about right, doesn't it?
Close enough.
And then Takamar. Got that right. 58mm 2.4, and I think I'm wide open at the moment as well. So that's perfect. What more could you want? And in glorious black and white, thanks to some inspiration by Fraser Yule, who we've had a few Zoom meetings for the 6 times Darkroom, and Fraser is an honorary member of that, having visited once on his way down from Scotland once, and I'd got this setup working, and he was impressed by it, and he's got a Sony as well. So I explained to him how to do it, and because it's all free, which is the best way, and yeah, so he did it, he ran with it, and then next time he did it, he came back in black and white, which is just so cool. So I mean, in fact, actually, when I set this up for black and white a few days ago, I switched it on to do something else with it, and I appeared on the screen in front of myself in black and white. I was thinking, whoa, it like scared me, because I'd forgotten what I had done there. But it's just really cool seeing webcam in black and white. What can you say?
Yeah, it looks so much better than what's coming through our cameras and screens. Okay, so let's stop talking about rangefinder tabs and knobs and move on.
No, that's okay. We can continue.
That's all I got to say about that. No, but for people who are interested in the new Voigtlanders, the Ultron 35 f2 and the 21mm 3.5, they're designed to work a little bit better on digital. And, Mike has confirmed that they don't have the kind of weird edges on digital. The number one concern I've heard people express about those two lenses is like, will I like the knob? You will. You will love the knob.
You will slob all over that knob.
Okay, moving on.
I just want to point out for the record that Mr. Gandhi at Camera Quest has the 2125 finder still in stock. So anyone who's now gassing for a little slob on the knob, you might want to head over to Mr. Gandhi's site and pick one of these up, which I've come dangerously close to doing in the past, but I've just never been able to justify it because I have both the 21 and the 25 finders, the plastic ones separate. It would just purely because it looks so fucking cool. Yeah. And it would look better on on certain cameras is the only reason I want that finder. I don't need it. I just really, 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 really want it, but I can't, I just can't bring myself to do it. But other people should.
It makes a difference, dude. When I put, depending on which viewfinder I put on the camera, my enjoyment of the camera changes dramatically.
100%, man. That's how I feel about it too.
The tiny little Voigtlander 2835 combined finder, when that's on my Blackpaint 3F, it just like I will shoot that all day.
Yeah.
But if you put that finder on like an M4, it looks stupid.
Right. Right.
Okay. But for Simon's sake, the other thing I went out shooting with, which also kind of sparked an interesting conversation with Nick Lyle about pairing films with certain lenses, was I finally went out and I shot with this thing, a Topcon RE Super, or the Super D as it's known in the West, which I think is a far, far better name. And I shot this with my 17 blade 58 f2 Biotar. Nice. Loaded with Fuji Superia Extra 400 on a really bright sunny day. Normally I hate that film because it's super green and like weird looking. But the results on this lens on that day came out really well. And according to Mike Novak, he says sort of back in the day, maybe when I was still a fetus, the general consensus was you'd use sort of Fuji Superia films for like foliage and blue skies, and then Kodak films for like skin tones and warmer stuff, which I think still holds true today. You know, Ektar and most Kodak films are significantly warmer and less green than the Fujis. But it's, you know, using this lens was the first time I got results from Superia Extra that I actually liked. And in addition to that, I got to say, apart from the fact that it's impossible to focus, this is the most enjoyable SLR I've ever shot. And I'm now looking for because I know they made like 4 or 5 different focus screens for it. I'm trying to figure out if there's one focus screen that's just like pure ground glass, like a Spotmatic, you know?
You know what? I'm pretty sure there is. You just have to find probably an old instruction book. Yeah. Like
I'm sure there is. It's just I don't know which one it is.
Yeah. I'm sure they're out there because I know we had in a drawer at Central, we had some focus screens for those at one point. So
yeah. So you both have this camera, right?
I used to. I had one, an RE Super, with the 58 1.4 on it as well, and I shot a couple of rolls through it, and I just didn't. I didn't enjoy the experience. I really disliked the ergonomics of the camera. It was just way too square. It was a camera to me that just looked better than it actually operated. That was my take on it. But the other side of it is now that I've got this Exakta mount Zeiss 75 1.5, I really need a Topcon camera back in my life again. I am on the lookout, but I want to. I forget which ones they are now, but I've got eBay searches running on the last of the line of them with the Exakta mount because having tried the RE Super and not like that, well, it seems to make sense to try something that's later. They might not be actually technically viewed as being as good a camera, but at the end of the day, if I just prefer it, it doesn't actually matter if it's technically not as good as long as it works and I'm happier using it. That's my train of thought.
Yeah. Did they make Exakta mount Topcons after the RE Super before they switched to their weird proprietary mount?
Yeah, the RE Super was an early one, wasn't it?
They made like later iterations of the Super D, right?
Yeah.
But are they significantly different?
It's a while since I've looked at them, to be honest. Do you know, Johnny?
No, I think they're basically the same. I was going to say it's the earlier ones that are different. I would if I was going to buy a Topcon, I would actually look at the pre RE models, and I'm looking for the name of that one right now. But I had that one on my list for quite a while that I just wanted to get and try out. What is that one? I'm trying to remember the model name for those, but they're not as bulky. Is it the R3? They're not quite as bulky as the RE Supers, and they don't screw around. They don't have meters or anything, which is, to me, is perfectly fine.
That's one of the compromises with the RE Super, isn't it? Because you've got the way that it's metered. I mean, it was...
Well, the metering is awesome. The metering is 10 years ahead of what Nikon did in their SLR. So it has a 10-year advantage on in-body metering ahead of Nikon, which came out of the same era. So
look at that. Look at how cool that is. I don't know if you can see it.
And the metering, it works. I mean, it's they're great metering cameras.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, that metering and what Perry has just shown, which nobody can see, is a close up of the mirror, and in the mirror there's like a hatching pattern, and that hatching pattern is where the whatever it is, the for want of a better word, the sensor for the camera, it's built into the mirror, and that robs light.
It really doesn't.
It really does.
No, it really doesn't.
It really does.
Really, it actually doesn't.
It actually does.
No, it doesn't.
I've read it. I've read it on the internet.
No, you've read it, but you haven't compared it. It really doesn't steal much light at all. It's just it's an older viewfinder.
Well, there you go. You just admitted it. It does steal some light.
No, but no, it's not anything noticeable. Is my point. That is not a reason to not use that camera. It's probably in the single digit percentages. It's not as much light as like the Pen FT metering steals. It's nowhere near that much.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's you're talking fractional, super fractional. But I mean, that's why I say if the older models, they don't have the metering at all, and you get a slightly smaller body with a slightly more traditional ergonomics to it, it might actually be worth looking at because I think they handle a little bit differently. So that would be like the Topcon R.
Yeah. That said, though, I think the light loss, it's probably there technically, but in use during the daytime, I didn't notice it at all.
Right.
The thing that does that is a little bit quirky is if you're using this at night, like I'm in a relatively dim, room right now because it's nighttime, is if I look through the viewfinder, it's perfectly bright, but the meter is like twice as bright as the viewfinder.
Right.
Because all of that sort of artificial light is getting sucked through and then illuminating the meter. So that's annoying, and that doesn't happen there during the daytime. But the thing that does happen because of the dimness is if you're using a non-auto lens like this Biotar, then when you stop down beyond like 5.6 or f8, then the split prism in the middle, it goes black. And that's really the harder thing about using it, which is why I think my issue with it right now is the focus screen and not the actual brightness of the viewfinder. So I think it might be focus screen number 2 or something that is basically all ground glass. But if anyone out there knows which number focus screen is as close to the sort of default focus screen in the Spotmatic as possible, that's sort of what I would like. So not like Fresnel lens glass all the way around, but as much ground glass as possible around the middle, and then no split rangefinder in the middle because I hate those things.
Yeah, and I mean, all at some point, basically all split prisms are going to do that, except with really fast lenses. I mean, that's just inherent. That's what happens when you try to basically turn an SLR into a rangefinder. Yeah, I mean, it's just the downside,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But on this camera, the other two things that I think really just heighten my enjoyment of it are this advanced lever is like the nicest I've felt on any SLR. It's
crazy smooth.
It's so smooth. I mean, it's as good, if not better, than my M3. Yeah. And then, the rewind, it was the first roll of film I shot, and the rewinding experience on this camera is the most satisfying rewind experience, because when you turn the rewind dial, right? Simon, quit smirking. This stuff is important. When you turn the rewind dial, number one, it automatically comes up, right?
Right.
So it's such a nice touch because as you turn it, it goes from down to up, like that, and then it's super smooth and it stays up. Like you can't press it down until you get it at like a closed angle. And I love little touches like that. The Alpha cameras also have that where like the rewind dial is sort of pops up and slides to the side as you take it up. And little mechanical touches like that make me so happy. And I think this camera just has it in spades,
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. I'm gonna sell mine at some point because I mean I'm just not gonna use it. But it's just such a nice design wise. It's just such a nice camera to use.
Yeah, I think the only SLR I enjoy using more than this one is the Spotmatic. Maybe the Contax S2. But I think if I had to dump all my SLRs, the Nikons and Olympus and stuff would go without hesitation. But I would keep this and the Spotmatic, I think, because the Spotmatic is the most practical, but this is just such a joy to use. It's awesome.
I'll be interested to know if I don't know if I was dreaming it, but I'm convinced that I saw not truly modern, but say something from the 70s or maybe later SLR camera that had the Exakta mount on it. Could have been almost like a Casino or something like that.
No, you're totally right because it was somebody like that who did. They still were put out an Exakta mount camera in the 70s, which is bonkers. But that is true, and I'm trying to remember who it was that did that. But yes, that definitely did happen. It's not an urban legend.
Yeah,
some crazy camera company decided to still put out an Exakta SLR mount body in like 1975.
Well, if any listeners know what that camera is, please let us know because I might be interested in one of those.
We need Mike Ekman on to clarify.
Someone will comment right away.
Yeah, I'm just looking in the manual here for the focus screens, Perry, because I'm positive you can get that focus screen.
Yeah, I think having looked at, I think I found a list at some point. I think it's number 2 that I want.
Yeah,
but I'm not totally sure. But on the final topic, Nick Lyle has been talking about pairing films with lenses, and we've talked about this a little bit, right?
Oh,
Johnny?
it is the number 2. Sorry, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah,
okay.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I think the ones after
7.
4 are really specialized.
Yeah, they're for like copy work and stuff.
Yeah,
so
copy
there's
and microscopes.
Yeah, there's like 7 different screens. So number 2 is a ground glass with the kind of center bubble, which is, as we know, the best and ultimate focusing screen for all SLRs.
Yeah,
as we have discussed on this program previously.
Exactly. That's the one I wanted because it's the only one I can actually use.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go look for one of those.
I've just nipped onto Camerapedia. Is it Camerapedia? Yeah, Camerapedia, and there are some made in Japan Exakta branded cameras. So the TL500, TL1000, the FE2000 sounds.
No, those are.
That sounds awesome. I mean, an FE2000. That sounds like it's as good as a Nikon FE with a 2000 shutter. Surely.
I had one of the Exakta RTL 1000s. I gave it to Mike Ekman because I just didn't even want to know that it existed anymore, and I wanted it out of my house. Like I wanted it out of my house like a rapist. It was like or like the child of like a rape baby. Like just get it away from me. Like Rosemary's Baby. That camera is Rosemary's Baby. And even if you're a mother and you see it for that moment and you think, oh, but it's still my baby. It's still fucking Satan. And you just don't want it around. So yeah, the RL1000 is an absolute disaster of a camera. And I think Mike Ekman might have actually got it working because I couldn't get it to do anything. But it is like the shittiest piece of garbage that probably was ever had a lens mount put on it. You know those scammers that they put that say like Canon or Olympus on them? Those are better than the RL1000. I would rather shoot with one of those than the RL1000.
Well, I found the FE2000 and it's
okay.
It's disappointed in many respects. It's basically a Praktica, but made in Japan. It looks like, but it doesn't go to 2000 on the shutter, and it's not a Nikon FE, and
it doesn't look like an Exakta mount.
No, it's just got an M42 screw mount on it. So I think it just says Exakta on it, and I've been led down the wrong path.
Yeah, those are basically Exaktas that were, they're not made in Germany. They were kind of post meltdown Exakta cameras when you could still put the brand name on something and it would seem like it meant something to have that brand name on there. But they're an unmitigated disaster, all those things. Yeah. So any camera that was released with an Exakta mount after 1970 is going to be complete and utter garbage.
I'm just looking up this RTL 1000 that you've just been doing a really good job of selling to me, and there's one here at £20.
Produced from 1969 to 1973, after the Exakta business was acquired by Pentacon. Because, there's really pretty much nothing more exciting than things made in 1973 in East Germany. That is truly the height of camera design and manufacture in the Eastern Bloc of the former Soviet Union.
So, as this lens, this camera, this RTL 1000 that I'm really sold on.
Oh.
Are you sure that's the exact amount? I can't see it without the.
It's
not.
I see a picture. It's exact amount.
Yeah.
It's got the little lever.
Right.
And so the Exakta FE 2000 that Simon was referring to. Here's how bad this product is. Okay. It was also sold rebadged as a Petri because the Petri SLRs with the proprietary mount weren't bad enough, right? That they had this camera come out in the 1970s when they were already like a totally dead company. So yeah, they're all East German bollocks, all of this stuff.
It doesn't look that bad. I mean, it's got cool accessories. There's a metered prism finder.
What, the 2000?
No. The RTL 1000. That's.
Oh yeah, the RTL 1000. Yeah, look at that. Look at the inspiring front sliding plastic shutter button. I mean, does that not give you?
Oh, I was gonna ask, what is that thing on the front?
Yeah,
that's the shutter button.
Yeah, does that not give you?
Oh.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it just do it for you?
What's the thing that says 8 and then like 42 underneath? Is that a self timer? There's a lever under the shutter.
Yeah, I believe so. I can't remember. I've tried to erase all memory of that camera from my.
Does it do?
Is that ISO? Perhaps that's ISO. Isn't
no, ISO's on the top near the rewind dial. I can see that. Okay, but there's a lever under the shutter which looks like a self timer, and it says 8 and 42. Does that mean this thing does a 42-second self timer?
No, hold on a second. I think Mike Ekman.
I think what we can establish in here, it has got extra buttons and levers, which means it's a better camera.
Yeah. Here Mike Ekman wrote. I don't know if this is the one I gave him, but Mike Ekman has a review of the RTL 1000. So it's out there, folks.
Okay, I'm going to watch this. There's one sitting there.
Oh,
nobody's put any bids on it. It's sitting there at £20 at the moment, with an Oriston lens on it as well.
They should give you £20 for taking that camera off their hands.
So I'm looking at the manual right now, Simon. This thing that I think is the self timer, that is not what it is. What it is the lever is the tensioning lever of the mechanism for low shutter speeds. So if you're using a slow shutter speed, you have to cock it twice and tension it. I guess the Exaktas are like that too, like the Varix and stuff. And then there's another shutter speed setting knob for 2 to 8 seconds. And then there's a release knob of a preset timing mechanism. which I think is a fancy way of saying self-timer. So yeah, the camera is so good that you have to cock it twice.
Yeah. So
you got a removable prism head as well.
Well, yeah, you had to. I mean, it was a pro model camera. I mean, it had to compete with the other pro level cameras of the era now, didn't it? I mean, if you're on the fence between like a Nikon F2 and an RTL 1000, I mean, you damn well better be able to change prisms, right? I guess, I mean, you could really make a case for.
I've done it. I've submitted an offer. You've sold it to me now.
Oh my god!
And I mean, it starts at £20, and amazingly no bids yet. The postage is reasonable, and so I'm just going to offer him what he's asking for it as a minimum price. I mean, he can't possibly refuse that, can he?
Can I just read you one line from Mike Eckman's review of this camera?
It may be too late now.
Okay. I was never able to get this camera to work properly, which means I couldn't shoot any film in it, closed quote. So there you go. Your future Simon's new camera.
Yeah, well, it's probably an exception, isn't it? There are bad cameras out there, and some Nikons don't work, some Leicas don't work, and all that kind of stuff. And
the only thing worse than an Exakta built after 1970 is an Exakta that's actually a Praktica. So, that's what you got here. So yeah, Mike does indeed have a review of the camera that I sent him. And he, funnily enough, I sent him a whole box full of things, and he's got a picture of the box that has all these cameras in it that I sent him. So you guys can enjoy the history of this particular camera in Mike's review if you like.
Well, Simon, I hope the one that you have just bought works, and that it makes your Biotar 75 experience worthwhile.
Oh, well, I've only made an offer, so who knows?
Would you like another quote from Mike's article?
Yeah, go for
it. Quote, unlike most metal blade shutters of the day made by precision companies like Kopel, the RTL 1000 shutter was developed in-house and was prone to failure, close quote.
I was going to say the shutter looks really weird.
Yeah.
It does look like someone just stuck a few pieces of metal together.
That's pretty much how it feels when you use the camera, too.
There you go. Well, you're going to come full circle and get a Topcon.
Topcon
R. Do it. Topcon R.
When I can get one of these for maybe £20, then it'll be rude not to, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
fair enough. Yeah. Okay, forget the Nick Lyle discussion. I think I'm done with my pile of lenses and cameras in front of me. I don't know how that drove us to the Exakta RTL 1000, but and if it does suck, I don't know. Maybe you can throw it in with the Raynox pile.
win a wet on wet Bokeh, Raynox 135 and an RTL 1000. It's getting better and better, isn't it? Right then. So shall we head over to Chicago now and see what's been happening in your world, Johnny?
Not much. I mean, I've been feeling like garbage, but you guys got me all worked up over this RTL 1000. So I have more energy right now. I'm ready to I'm ready to down a half a bottle of Malort and just have a fight right now. So that's a good thing, I guess. That Venn diagram of "Hey, buddy." Like, it's the thing you say when you, I can't remember all parts of the Venn diagram, but one is, when you meet a new dog. The other is when you're about to start a bar fight, and I can't remember what the other one is, but they all start with "Hey, buddy." Anyway, what's going on in Chicago? It's sunny. It's Saturday, and that's about all I've got. It's sunny and it's Saturday in Chicago. And I'm still looking at the RTL 1000, and I'm just angry that it exists.
So, have you got any kind of updates on central camera?
Right. Speaking of things that are totally effed right now, after our RTL 1000 discussion, the only updates I have is that the fundraiser, I think they've broken the $200,000 line mark on the fundraiser. Yeah, which is amazing. So thank you for everyone there. We've sold in excess of 350 t-shirts in a couple of weeks, which also adds to that. So thank you for that as well, for all that support. We've had lots of, messages and well wishes, and all that's been amazing. And I know that Don, I think, is going to be, he sent me a message last night that he's going to be over at the shop today. Actually, I need to call him. So I know that they're doing cleanup today and salvage of anything that might be salvageable, which I really don't know what that's going to entail. Because of the smoke, anything that didn't probably get directly burned or water damaged is probably smoke damaged pretty badly. But anyway, I think they're going to be over there doing some salvage today, which I guess you got to do no matter what, just to get the space cleaned out. What else? And things that were looted from the shop are starting to turn up online. So we've had a few messages sent to us of people of the moronic persuasion posting these things on Craigslist and Let Go and what have you, that still have the tags from Central Camera on them. Yeah. So way to go, criminal brain trusts. Give it to your girlfriend so she can fence it for you on Craigslist, and don't bother taking the tags off. That's fine. And just FYI, the FBI is investigating the case. So good for you. It's now a federal crime that you're involved in. So yeah, enjoy, have fun. But that's kind of the interesting thing that's going on here, I guess, related to the whole thing. And then somebody else wrote in and said, I saw the email because he wrote to the t-shirt shop, and he said that there were some lenses that he found in a dumpster that had Central Camera tags on them. But they were like Sigma zooms from the 90s. So I was like, yeah, just keep them, that's where they belonged in the first place. But yeah, so there's little bits and pieces of that stuff kind of out there floating around apparently. So the ad that I saw on this Letgo site was for a Cambo wide, which was we had this Cambo wide in the showcase window, which I personally really wanted that thing because it was just cool as hell. So it was the Cambo wide 4x5 with the lens and the viewfinder on it. And it had still the tags on it, and they wanted half the price shown on the tag. Cause when you've looted it, it's all profit after that. Aside from, I guess, the gas that you spent to drive downtown to do your looting. Yeah. Don't know what came of that stuff, but that's what's going on.
So it sounds like some of these looters are quite savvy if they're dumping Sigma zooms from the 90s and selling large format stuff. Yeah, or do you think they're just looking at the price tag and making a decision based on that?
Yeah, I think they probably figured out that there was no reason to try to sell something that wasn't worth anything.
Usually the giveaway on the Sigma zoom is that the focus and zoom rings start to stick to your fingers.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, some of these were still like new in the box. They were just that
new old
stock.
Problem.
No, it doesn't. That's true. It doesn't at all. But yeah, it's like one of those things. Like I guess when you're in a rush looting, you just kind of take everything and then sort it out later. So, you know, they got a lot of garbage like that. So, but hey, that's just how it goes. I mean, looting ain't easy.
And I think this also proves that I don't think we're ever going to do that episode on vintage zoom lenses.
I don't know. I mean, the lens would be pretty awesome if you had like an EOS 2000. It might be a pretty awesome lens to have on your EOS 2000. It'll weigh more than the camera and have more metal in it. Not very inspiring, however. Even if you got it for free in your looting rampage, it's not very inspiring. So that's pretty much the update from here, as far as I got it.
Okay. Well, I think the big news from my side of things is I've finally got the images back from the roll of film that Perry sent to me, a roll of Portra 160.
Hooray!
120 film.
Cool.
And most of these, I think I actually finished shooting it sometime in January or February or something like that, when the world was normal. And I think some actually go back to last autumn as well. So the Medalist, the 6x9 camera with the amazing, or allegedly amazing, Kodak Ektar lens with a Heliar formulation. And my absolute worst fears came true about that camera, because I absolutely truly hated using it. It was horrible. Quite possibly that it just doesn't work as well as it should do, because the shutter button, you seem to have to put too much force on the shutter button, and then you think, oh, nothing's going to happen, and then just as you're just about to take the pressure off it because nothing's happening, it takes the shot, if you're ready for it or not. So it's just hard work. So yeah, got the pictures back, and they were really good. I've got a picture of Jeremy North, which people have commented that, what a great picture of Jeremy North. And then there was Graham Jago from the Sunny 16 podcast, sitting next to him as well. That was looking good as well. And then I was up in a place called New Brighton near Liverpool earlier this year on an absolutely awful day. But I was up there on business, and I met up with Stig of the Dump from Twitter fame, and we met up and we had a walk around. The weather was awful, absolutely awful, and it was the rain was coming down sideways. It was really windy and so on and so on, and but I took a few snaps, and two of them were of this of rain, a storm cloud really just opening up over Liverpool with the sun behind it. And at the time when I actually took the shot, I thought, this might be worth it. And then I got the photos back, and they were great. I mean, they're super moody, and so I mean, I turned one of them into black and white because it didn't really work particularly well in colour. But the other one was in really muted colours, and it was blues and yellows, and it was a really super moody shot, and I just love it. I mean, I cropped it very wide, which I think is wholly appropriate with the 6x9 frame anyway. And it really delivered. It really did.
They look really good. The shot of Jeremy North and Graham, I mean, it really looks like that lenses and that film are just so nice for people shots. So, well done. It took you only half a year to shoot and process that roll? Yeah,
actually longer, I think.
Totally reasonable.
Yeah,
totally reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, the film had been. I finished the roll off, and then we developed it at the 6x darkroom, and then Josh, who runs I wish I could remember his name of his company now. He runs he's a member of the club, but he's also just set up a business developing film and scanning film, and he took it away with him, and then COVID hit, and we just sort of forgot all about it. And then I got a nudge from somebody like saying, have you got the medalist pictures yet? And so I gave Josh a nudge, and he got them scanned for me, and it's one of those things. The pictures were that good. I want to use it again now, especially on people. Although the landscape stuff was good, and they would have been stopped down a little bit. But certainly the shots of Jeremy and Graham, they were wide open. I can remember specifically I wanted to shoot them wide open, and that was also why I went out with the 160 film as well instead of because I had some 400 as well. But I thought, no, I'll go with the slower film to give me a chance of being able to shoot wide open. Which, well, I had more than a chance because it was an absolutely horrible day. It was cold and it never really got bright. Yet the look of the shots that have come back look really good. I think it was. I'm not sure if it was the way I was using my light meter, or whether the shutter's probably slightly a little bit slow, because I think the shots is a little bit overexposed. But with portrait, that's one of the things you can do. I mean, they've certainly, the colours have gone more towards the pastel rather than the pop.
Sure.
So, and I think that's an overexposed look.
Yeah,
is that correct? Yeah. So,
yeah.
But I really like that look. I think it's a really, really beautiful look.
Yeah, it's great for people. Yeah, it's perfect for people shots. Makes skin and everything just look nice and warm and lovely. And the other thing that's interesting is just if you were shooting that wide open, it looks like focusing and nailing focus was a breeze, even on as fast moving a subject as Jeremy North.
Yeah, well, that's one of the odd things about that camera. Was it works? It's as close to being. Well, it's very similar to using an SLR, and you look through a centrally mounted viewfinder, but within the viewfinder you've also got the rangefinder, but you don't have a rangefinder patch in the same way as you do with a Leica or most rangefinders, full stop. You've actually got a split screen instead, so and even then you've got a small viewfinder, and then underneath it there's a focusing prism, and you horizontally align things. So so you've got a separate viewing screen and a separate rangefinder screen, but you see them through the same place, and you just have to look downwards to see the rangefinder in action. So it's intuitive and it's annoying at the same time, but it seemed that it worked. It was a bit dim, but it absolutely did the job.
Was it as dim as a Topcon?
Dimmer, even dimmer.
Far dimmer than a Topcon, even.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, it was dirty as well. It doesn't need clean. So,
all right, fair.
A clean Topcon is Topcon is dim. So what can we say? Yeah.
So is that the only medium format lens widely available that's a Heliar design? I can't think of any others. And that's a really good use case for it.
I mean, obviously the Voigtlanders.
Yeah, I mean for an SLR, not on a folder.
Oh, for an SLR. Oh, I mean, yeah.
Well, I don't think there's any on any SLR. Apart from the one I'm using as my webcam, and that's on 35mm. And that's the only one for the 35mm.
Yeah.
But I can't.
Well, I guess I'm thinking non-folder, because you could rip that lens off of the Medalist, right? And I guess you could do the same with folders. But I guess what I'm asking is there anything like that lens that isn't on that body or on a folder?
I don't think so.
I can't think of any off the top of my head either. It's pretty unique.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think you're stuck with it, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, a part of it is thinking, well, if this thing just doesn't work at all, then I can rip the lens off, but I can't now. But yeah, Heliars are more common as portrait lenses on large format. So there's although again they're all old, but yeah, they're they very much the at the more expensive end of the large format lenses, very desirable. So other things, I've won a few things at auction there this week, which I'll be picking up next week, including an M42 Biotar. Don't know how many aperture blades it's got or anything like that, but I've also picked up a Contaflex camera. Not because Contaflex. Sorry. Yeah. Come back down. No, don't get excited. No, Contaflex. And the reason why I've got that is because I've got lens caps for the a lens cap design for the lenses, or so-called lenses, which is, it's just like the front cell that pops in and out of them. But I'm going to get the camera body as well, so I'm going to be able to make the lens caps for the body and the lenses for Contaflex. So I'm quite excited about that.
So just to be clear, you've bought that essentially just to use as a design aid to make lens caps.
Exactly, and a body cap, yeah.
Which obviously is the best reason to buy that camera.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the best reason to buy that camera.
I
have no intention of using it at all.
Yeah.
No. In fact, I've been following broken cameras for some time on eBay. But even though they're broken, I still think I'm not paying that much for one. I might only sell 3 caps. So I'm still losing my money on it. So
you got to break even here.
Exactly.
You have to at least cover your costs.
Yeah, it takes hours to make these things. So looking forward to that. But the big thing that's happened for me, at least in the last few days, is actually to do with my other podcast, which is the Large Format Photography podcast, where we had Clyde Butcher as our guest, and many people listening to this will know exactly who I'm talking about, but many people won't. And Clyde is one of the probably one of the most famous large format fine art photographers in the world today, and he looks like a large format photographer as well. He's got the beard, he's got the big hat. But one of the things that makes Clyde different from most large format photographers, when you see a picture of him, is quite often waist deep or even higher in water in the Everglades. Because he'll get out of a boat, or he'll walk to somewhere where it's, 5 foot deep or something like that, set his tripod up, and then take these incredible large format shots of the scenery down there. And
Anthony knows him, right?
I would imagine so. We've not actually spoken, but it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I think he
does. Yeah. I mean, certainly it's somebody that KARL and I had conversations about back in the day. And I know that KARL wanted to go and visit him, because that's the thing. You can go and actually stay there. He's got a like an education centre to show people about the Florida Everglades and why it needs protecting and so on. And it's he talks about it on the show, and it's a fascinating place. But the other thing about Clyde, though, is he's recently moved over towards digital, because he's 79 and he's had a stroke. So walking around with a backpack with large format gear, or wading through the Everglades is not so it's not so practical for him these days. I mean, he still does it though; it hasn't stopped him. But he's now. We had a long chat both on the podcast and then after the podcast finished about his Leica Monochrom M10 Monochrom camera, and. To say he's in love with that camera is an understatement. I mean, he really, really loves that camera, and he tells some stories of a story about sending a negative, digital negative to his printer, because he's famous for printing his own large format prints. He can make 8 foot wide prints. In his own studio, the old-fashioned way, but he doesn't do the digital ones. Because like any top photographer, it doesn't make you a great printer, and he is a top photographer and a great wet stroke darkroom printer, but he knows that he hasn't got all the skills that he would need to do the very best quality digital print. So he sends those off, and they've done this Palladium prints, I think somewhere in California, and the printer there was just absolutely blown away with the negatives that he was getting from Clyde in terms of like tonality. Because it does not behave like a normal digital camera, and so the different tones and shades you can actually get with that camera are far in excess of just starting off with a color image and then turning it into black and white. I mean, Perry, that's a camera you've sort of had a bit of an eye on in the past, isn't it?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you for if you didn't provide it, for the executive summary of what he liked about it, because the LEICA M Monochrom series, I wonder if it takes someone like him to really appreciate it, because he's making prints, right, and large prints.
Yeah.
And I have wondered whether, if you're just viewing on a screen or viewing digital, whether an M Monochrom is actually that much noticeably more rich in its tonality than, say, something that you've just converted to black and white, right? Because I know that,
I was going to say the answer is definitely yes, and he does go into. I mean, it's worth having a listen to this, because he goes into quite some detail as to what it does differently to how a normal sensor works compared to how that particular sensor works. So that those range of tones are definitely different. But yeah, I think I agree with you, Perry. If all we were doing is sharing these things on Facebook, would we see that difference? And the answer is no. But when you're printing things truly massively, and if you're a world-renowned black and white photographer that prints enormous prints and knows exactly what those prints should look like, then yes, I'm pretty sure you are going to see those differences.
Yeah, because that's the thing with the monochrome sensor, right? It doesn't have like a Bayer array, so you get everything from the better sensitivity to much higher resolution. But the raw files I've seen from the monochrome series, naturally they're a lot more flat because they have all that tonal information, right? So to me, I've only seen them on screen, and I can't say that I can see a huge difference. But exactly as you say, if you know what you're doing, you can probably turn those raw files into something a lot richer than you could from like a regular raw file, right?
Absolutely, and but do have a listen to that, because he explains it far better than I can there. But also in there was a few conversations about 35mm lenses, and after we actually finished, and this was after the recording, I then carried on talking to him, and when we were chatting about adapting enlarger lenses to his monochrome, and how to do that, and he's adapting RZ lenses to cameras. He's a proper classic lens guy. So what
was his favorite 35mm lens?
Well, the ones he uses the most are actually Canon tilt shift. So modern EOS tilt shift lenses, which he uses on his GFX. He's got a GFX 50 and a GFX 100, and he's using the tilt shift lenses on those. Because obviously, they are tilt shift, they're not just shift. The beauty of those is, of course, is they have a larger image circle than the conventional 35mm lens anyway. And so you pop those onto a GFX, which isn't that much larger than full frame, and it covers it fine, and you still get to do the large format style movements on it as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's it, and he's also worked out how to change the aperture on those electronic aperture lenses, because generally speaking, I think he shoots everything at, I think it's either f12 or f16, so he sets it up on the camera to f16, then takes it off the camera, probably while it's actually in mid shot, and then he just locks the aperture in place.
Yeah, the way you would do that is you just press the depth of field button on the Canon SLR, then take the lens off, and it'll stay.
Exactly, yeah. But I think he's actually doing it off an adapter to do that. I didn't quite get what he was doing, but he's doing it. He knows what he's doing, so we didn't push that one.
Cool.
So yes, that was pretty much highlighting my week, really. I think.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, actually, another. I'm going to do a shout out now as well because I think that's where we're heading now, anyway, isn't it? So I just want to give a shout out to Mike Gutterman of the Negative Positives podcast because he took delivery of a couple of my lens caps for evaluation for the Pentax 6.7. So it gave me some really good feedback on there. So thanks for that, Mike, and. I'll be working on those two and releasing them soon. So thank you very much. Guys, have we got anything else we want to talk about?
No, I'm yawning. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, and it's late in Hong Kong as well. So, Perry, have you got any shout-outs?
Do I have any shout-outs? Yeah, I guess another quick shout-out to Mike Epstein for, keeping me company while we're both kind of like in scheduling chaotic limbo and going out and shooting. I think that's it.
Okay, Johnny.
I just again want to thank all the people who have. I'm having a yawn at a stretch. Right. All the people who have sent well wishes and donations, et cetera, for Central Camera. And people have sent me well wishes. Thank you very much. And I guess that's about it right now. Yeah.
I just noticed through the wonder of high technology and also looking through Johnny's red filter. Stop. Johnny, you've got a tattoo on your arm. Is that a tattoo?
Is that showing somewhere? Oh yeah, I
saw it earlier too.
I have a few of those. Yeah.
Yeah, well done. Not that I have any, but there you go. Just caught my eye there. Okay. Right. Well, on the subject of raising money, we've had 2 donations since we were last on. Both of those are recurring donations from James Thorpe and Brian Woolworth. So thank you both for those. I just realised we were going to do emails, but no. Let's do those another time, including the one from Barry KARL that haven't read out for weeks and weeks and weeks. So we will get to that one, Barry.
Simon. Sorry, just when you're done wrapping up the coffee part, I do remember one shout out that I want to throw out as well.
Okay, that's it. Well, I've now wrapped up that part. Apart from the fact that any donations that come through to us this week are going to be forwarded onto the campaign on GoFundMe for Central Camera. So if you do wish to help out with Central Camera, if that's a cause that you want to support, I think it's best if you go straight to GoFundMe. But if you can't and you want to, donate it to us and we'll donate it over. Okay, so let's head back to Perry.
A quick shout out from me to Nick Lyle, where we got kind of entangled in this like just 2-person long thread conversation about Bronica S2. He's doing some kind of crazy speed graphic lens board thingy that, the kind of thing that he always does. And that thread, for anyone who has a Bronica S or a Bronica S2, that thread is super interesting because he learns a couple of things about that lens mount from me. I learned a couple of things about that lens mount from him. But one thing I learned from him is it might be possible to use the helical on that camera to adapt other lenses to the Bronica S2, because the lenses, it's almost like a SLR version of like a Hasselblad's version of the Contax 2, because the focusing helicoid and the lens are separate on that camera. And so he seems to have found a mechanism inside the helicoid where there's a thread that you could then attach other lenses and focus. And I think that's super cool. And I've never seen anyone do that before. So that's neat.
Yeah. Nice. And does that have has that got a focal plane shutter on that?
Hold on, let me grab it. Yes. It's right here. It's right here. Oh, shit.
It's gone. Just
No, it's okay.
I was going to say, just for the sake of some of our listeners, when I asked if it's got a focal plane shutter, the reason why I'm asking that is because many of these medium format cameras use a leaf shutter, so the shutter's in the lens, whereas a focal plane shutter is at the back, just in front of the film plane, and that means that you can use lenses that don't have a built-in shutter. But things like a Hasselblad, well, the main iconic Hasselblad, like the 500 cm, you can't really use other lenses because it's designed to have its shutter in the lens itself, so it doesn't have a focal plane shutter like a conventional camera that we know of at the back.
So it does. If you can see it on the screen here, the back comes off just like a Hasselblad back by pressing in the dark slide. The shutter is here, so it's absolutely a focal plane shutter right at the back. And then when you take the lens off, it's a very conventional SLR, with a giant mirror. Sounds like a thunderclap when you fire it. But the cool thing that Nick was talking about is this is the lens, and it focuses in this helical. But then the thing that he couldn't figure out was how to get the lens out. And there's actually a button when you put it at minimum focus that takes the lens out of the helical. Awesome. And so you can put I've got most of the Nikkor lenses for this system. So they all just mount into this helical, and then there's multiple markings on the focus scale for different focal lengths. But what he noted is, I have to look at this more closely, but he said something about a thread. Oh yeah, there's a thread inside there's a thread inside this helical mount. And so he was saying if you could get a M57 or whatever it is, converter and stick it inside the thread, then rather than using the bayonet mount inside the helical, you could screw lenses and attach them into here, and then basically, oh shit, I've just touched the shutter, but whatever. And basically just put this onto the camera and use it to focus whatever lens you've adapted. Yeah.
No, that's really cool. And the other thing there is you could easily adapt things like projection lenses into there, and just wrap something around the diameter of the projection lens, assuming that you can get the lens into that aperture, and then just fill the rest of it up with something. I use foam and things like that, and that'd be really cool.
Yeah, the nice thing too is the mirror is really far back in this camera. I don't know if you can really see that, but it's really, really far back. Like I can sort of shove most of my finger in there and not touch the mirror. So you do have a lot of space with these lenses because this lens, it sticks out that much and it doesn't touch the mirror.
Yeah.
So that's just, if you have any interest in this camera or this system, go check out that thread because it's super, super cool. I had no idea you could do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you're welcome, Nick, for dismounting the lens.
Yeah. Okay. No,
okay.
That's
so
cool.
I'm Paul Cat. That's super cool.
Okay, well, let's start to do the final wrap up then. Perry, outside of this podcast, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Flickr at Perry G.
And Johnny.
You can find me on Instagram and get in the queue for the next biannual queue approval to follow me on Instagram. Which will be happening, I think, in 2022.
I know that on Instagram, Cloud Surfer on Instagram, he was bragging about being part of the latest intake, and I think he was actually offering out his services to let people know what it is that you're putting onto his Instagram account that can't see it.
Wow. I hope he's making some money off of that. Yeah. So, and then while you're on Instagram, visit Best Vintage Lens. That's still around, right?
It is. It's still going. Unfortunately,
still going.
Ricardo is a lot busier than he used to be. Hence why there aren't any more pithy reviews of our podcast going around.
Pawn it off. I sent somebody.
But they have a few new moderators for Best Vintage Lens, and the pictures that they've been featuring lately are, let's say, more diverse than they used to be. So it's kind of cool.
Excellent. No, that's good.
Oh, holy crap. I just saw there's this picture on Flickr. What's the Flickr? Is that oh, it's still around. There's this picture on Flickr of a Bronica S2 with a tilt shift bellows on it. And it looks freaking rad. Wow.
That's a native one, right? I think they did make a
it's made,
system.
Yeah, it's made for the system, but Jesus, there you go. There's another adapting another truly incredible adapting option. Wow. Damn. I hope the person who looted Bronica S2 out of the shop window at Central Camera is going to get one of these, because it would make a really nice addition to that S2 outfit. All right.
Emails. If people want to email them, we'll eventually read them out.
Yep. classiclensespodcast@gmail.com. Podcast website, classiclensespodcast.com. And show notes are there. Classic Lenses Podcast on Facebook, Classic Lenses Podcast on YouTube, which you can go and watch the episodes that are on video, but you won't be able to see the video. You'll just be able to see the captions of the speaking. So there's that.
Yeah.
That pretty much wraps her all up.
Okay. For me, I'm on Twitter as Simon4. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic, which is also the name of my website, simonforsterphotographic.co.uk, where that's one of the ways that you can buy some of my amazing lens caps that I have at the moment. I also have an eBay shop as well, which you can find my lens caps on eBay. Ben Kuto of the Kuto Camera Company in the state of Massachusetts is also producing my lens caps for those people in North America to make it a bit easier for them to get hold of them as well. He can be found on eBay as well. I think that's just about it, isn't it? Yeah. So music was by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, and I hope you enjoyed this week's show, and if you can, be like KARL.